great thing that he has done. And we are happy to be here at the sanctuary again. And today I've been praying, and what came to my spirit is that every one of us are gathered indoor, locked up, and the possibility of our lockdown, it is the fact that we will be clustered together as family. We will be together as family, and being together for a long period of time can sometimes create animosity, sometimes create a fight and battle. And so I've been praying so that I can speak to you in your homes as you celebrate, as you sit in those moments of lockdown. I want to speak in your spirit so that we be very careful that we don't do or say something to family members that will hurt them. And so today I want to speak from the book of Psalms again, which is the book that we are doing at this moment for Bible study. And so I want to speak from the book of Psalms 139. Psalms 139. Psalms 139. I will read a few of those verses, but I will emphasize on the 13 to the 15 verse. The 13 to the 15 verse, I will emphasize that. David writes here, he said, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me." He said, "You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my laying down, and are acquainted with all my ways." In the 13th verse, he said, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me in together in my mother womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful." Then he said, "I know that full well." In the 15th verse, he said, "My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret." My brothers and sisters, as I look at this text, given our situation at the moment, I want to speak as the Spirit of the Lord would guide us with the subject in mind. Who told you you were ugly? Who told you you were ugly? I want to speak again on that subject. Who told you you were ugly? Who told you that you were ugly? Minister Johnson, a few years ago, my youngest daughter approached me with a question. I remembered I was getting ready for a church service, and she came out to me when I was doing both of their hairs, and she came out to me, and the question that she asked was as simple as, "Daddy, why is it I am not as beautiful as Angela?" The youngest daughter, of course, trying to compare herself with the other younger daughter, Angela. She said, "Daddy, why is it that I am not as beautiful as Angela?" In my mindset, such question at 3 years old will raise tension for me. So I went down, scooped very low, and asked her, I said, "Baby, who told you that you are not as beautiful as Angela?" But in her mind, what beauty was, Sister Marver, what beauty was, Sister Johnson, was her head was not as long as her sister. She thought by having short hair, even though her head is growing exponentially, but her sister head have grown so longer, so she compared such beauty. She said, "I am not as beautiful," because in her mindset, that beauty was based on the length of your hair, the texture of your hair. And how we have been brainwashed and how we've been fooled, how we've been manipulated by humanity. I had to tell her, baby, your head is still in the process of growing. You don't have to worry whether your head is longer or not. Your hair will grow as long. And even with your hair, the shape of it, the size of it is even more beautiful. It's beautiful. You don't have to look down on yourself. Now, brothers and sisters, that concept of beauty, the aesthetic, that great philosopher talk about is in our time been subjected, is in our time been limited, is in our time been referred to based upon what the media, what Hollywood, what magazines tells us. That's how we have seen beauty. Beauty in our mindset may be something like our shape, our nose, our eyes, the way we look and how we portray, how we speak. Even the environment can even define our beauty these days. But I stopped by on this morning as we engage this topic, who told you that you're ugly? Because I know many people have used their standard. They've used the word standard. They've used a lot of standard to define what a beauty look like. And so on this morning, I come to tell you that if we were to consider what really beauty is, we don't start with Hollywood. We don't start with magazines. We don't start, but we go way back to how people perceive beauty. How was beauty perceived? I don't want to go way, way back, but I want to go back to the 4th century. And what they saw beauty like and what ugliness was like. That's why I want to talk about. I want to go way back and engage in what beauty looks like. The consideration and the considerable engagement of the concept of beauty goes far back to Plato in the 4th century BC. In the mind of the Greek, the adjective, that word beauty, it comes from the word kalos, we translate in our English word as beauty. And that translation of the English word beauty, when we should look at it more detailedly, we should look at it in the spheres or in the engagement of Plato as aesthetic. That word aesthetic, we talk about the admirations and beauty and fondness of life. That's what Plato called kalos, beauty in the mind of Plato. My brothers and sisters, to Plato, beauty was an ethical approbation. That means ethical approval. It was noble, it was sacred, and it has virtue. Plato believed, if you were to look at Plato, Plato believed that beauty was the sign of another higher order. A very high order. It is not just something that was limited to our experience here on earth, but it was a higher order. In his mind, he argued that beholding beauty in the eyes of the mind, we nourish truth, virtue, and we become friends to God. When we see beauty, beauty is more than just what we behold. Beauty is something that transcends. Beauty goes above. Beauty in God. Beauty is the attributes of God. Minister Johnson.
My Lord.
Plato beauty is realized in our human face. So when Plato, who saw beauty as this great transcending reality, Plato now comes to view beauty as what the human face looked like in the form. How beautiful when you look in the face of people. Plato said that beauty was an eros, that eros law. Just by looking at a beautiful face, there's something erotic that comes up. But he said that erotic is not a sexual erotic experience. He said it is the passion that we feel. That passion that is grounded in love and not lust. Every time beauty hit the key of lust, that erratic experiences, what it does is stimulate that beauty within us. And when we see beauty in that manner, what we think is that, oh, beauty ought to be something that I possess. Beauty ought to be something that I use. Beauty ought to be something that I can maybe do an experiment with. But that's not what beauty is. The plate of beauty should be adorable. It should be grounded in love that gives rather than lust. Because what lust does in the mind of Plato is that lust takes away, but love gives. And when lust takes away, it creates what we call ugliness. So that word ugliness can come when we see beauty as something that we are taking away, something that we are possessing. This form of ugliness, he argues, objectify others and treat individuals like disposable material. So every time you have in your mind beauty, and that beauty is for you to get it, for you to use it, for you to possess it, what Plato is saying, that beauty can look ugly, and that ugliness is that you see other human beings as disposable instruments.
All right.
So we cannot do anything to beauty, my brothers and sisters. When you see beauty, beauty is to be contemplated. Beauty is to be admired. Beauty is to be something that you behold. Beauty is to be something that is in your mind. It's conceptual. We appreciate it. We see it, and we are so amazed by it. My brothers and sisters, I stopped by this morning to let you know that when love is platonic, when we say platonic love, it takes away ugliness. The word ugly was used in the 4th century or in the 14th century as anything that was morally offensive. When someone tells you that you are ugly, what they are saying is that you are morally offensive and you are like a disposable material that I can use and dispose. Beauty should attract our attention towards spiritual connection. Beauty is about the spiritual. It's about connecting with God. It's not about the physical satisfaction. Beauty must move us to transcend our physical appetite to a divine contemplation, not to possess, but to appreciate. That's what beauty ought to look like. So to Plato, beauty was the transcending. Beauty was close to God. Beauty was the attribute of God. But not only Plato used those moments to really articulate what beauty is, but there is another brother by the name of Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant explained that when we look at beauty, it is not to satisfy our desire or our appetite to use for scientific practices. What he meant was when you enter in a hospital room and your friend had a baby and you went and saw the baby, trusty Levi. When you look at the baby, what he's saying is that when you look at the baby, you see the beauty of God. You see the wonder of God. You see the fear of God. You see everything that is above, transcendent. You don't look at a baby and say, oh, I want to eat this baby. I want to use this baby for experiment. That's what Immanuel Kant called beauty. When you see it, it's something that is adorable, something that moves you to the fears of amazement. That's what beauty was. We do not desire to eat babies. We don't desire to see a beautiful baby and say, I'm going to do a scientific experiment. So these were the concept of beauty. Before you have dialogue about your modern beauty, Hollywood beauty, those were the concept of beauty. That beauty was to be contemplated. Beauty was to be admired and not to be possessed or used. So when you see a beautiful woman, what they're saying, or you see a beautiful man, it's not to use him. It's not to possess the beauty that he had for your own self-desire, but rather it's something to adore. It's something to admire. So instead of wanting something, I should appreciate what God has created. My brothers and sisters, another question that I ask, therefore, is, if we say someone is beautiful, what are we saying? What are we saying when we look at a woman and say she's beautiful? What are we saying when we look at a man and say that he's beautiful? What are we really saying? Because, my brothers and sisters, I come to tell you this morning that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Amen.
Who understand it is not to be used or possessed, but rather contemplated. Beauty ought to be contemplated again, I tell you. It's something that you don't desire to use. You don't desire to abuse. You don't desire for your own self-appetite. Beauty was to the people of antiquity a remedy for pain. It was like human. It was a remedy for human suffering. They spend most of their life cultivating beauty. They look at beauty through music. They look at beauty through poetry. They look at beauty through every works of life. To them, beauty was God, visitor to the earth. We don't abuse it, but rather we just appreciate like a visitor in your life. When you see something beautiful, it's like a visitor. That's how they saw beauty. But my brothers and sisters, the problem with that is, even though the people of antiquity saw beauty closer to God, they saw beauty as transcending, they saw beauty as being adorable. But there was a guy in 1917 by the name of Marcel Duchamp. Marcel Duchamp was the one who redefined beauty to the standard that we had. He redefined beauty when he took a turn that beauty is in everything. Beauty can be perceived as anything, and it was not sacred. He took away the spiritual out of beauty. He took away the sacredness out of beauty. What he did was he took a urinal and put it in the museum and put his name on it with the year displaying that it was beauty, that urinal could be beautiful.
All right.
He took away that sacredness of beauty. And beauty was universally seen in the mind of a human now as anything with our spiritual connection. But here, my brothers and sisters, when we look at David's life here, David is very careful as he deals with this text. What David is dealing with in this text, David is talking about the beauty of God. He's talking about human beauty. He's talking about what it takes to be beautiful, that God is in the process. God is involved in beauty. My brothers and sisters, when David write this text in the book of Psalm 139, David talk about the intricate reality of beauty. Can you hear David in this text? He said, "Oh Lord, you have searched me and know me." He said, "You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thought from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and I acquainted with all my ways, even before a word is on my tongue. Behold, oh Lord, you know it all together." He said, "You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hands upon me." Then David says, "Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. Jesus. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence?" When David wrote this text, my brothers and sisters, David was looking at how God has been so concerned about humanity, how God put a whole lot in creating us. And until you can realize that God put in a whole lot just to create you, nobody can just tell you you're ugly and that ruin your day. Nobody can tell you you're ugly and that ruin the rest of your life, because in the first place, if you can create me, if you can make me, then you can tell me who I am. It is God who decides. It is God who determines what I am. And yeah, David said, "Lord, I will praise you.
Hey.
For I am fearfully and wonderfully made." He said, "I am wonderfully made. I am fearfully and wonderfully made."
Yes.
My brothers and sisters, when David write this text, David was engaging in a reality of descriptive analysis. But more often than not, when we look at the text, what we emphasize on is the human experience. We emphasize on the human part of beauty. We emphasize on the fearfully made and wonderfully made. But David is saying the emphasis is not on how beautiful I am, but it's on how how intricate the Creator created me. That's what David is saying. He said it has a whole lot to do with the God. He said, I will praise you, Lord, because you made me fearfully and wonderfully. I am made with some level of fear and some level of wonders. My brothers and sisters, when I look at that text, with the emphasis on God, looking at what God has done and what God did for us, what I emphasize in this text is to look at the word fearful. What does it mean to be fearful? Because I know many people have told you that you are ugly, but I want to change that dynamic. I don't know who told you during this time of lockdown that they told you ugly. Look at you, you wouldn't amount to nothing. You wouldn't be nothing. Well, before you take in all those things and start to contemplate about it and make it a part of your life or accept it as part of your life, let me change your construct. Let me change your narrative this morning, because David said, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Thank you, Lord.
So what does it mean to be fearfully made? That's what I want to talk about for a few moments. What does it mean to be fearfully and wonderfully made? When you look at the text, that word fearfully has nothing to do with dreaded fear. Had nothing to do with fear that possess you and it creates some panic in you, or fear that make you to go in the state of anxiety or depression. That's not what the word fear is in the text. That word fear, Sister Marva, comes from the Hebrew word yare. It means to reverence. It means to protect. It means something that is higher. It means something that you just say, wow, oh my God, I can't believe it. That's what the word fearful means in the text from the Hebrew word yare. And what that means, let me give you an explanation of what it is. You see, I like to travel a lot. I like to fly in the plane, and one of my greatest adventure is when the plane takes up from the airport and it makes its way up to the stratospheres, or one of those spheres. And when the plane is on one of those spheres, if you were privileged to be at the window and look out the window, you see the cloud. You see the cloud. I have to say it was a ground that you could walk on, and you get afraid. That fear, the fear is not that you are going to die. The fear is, I can't believe this. I can't believe this, but I'm protected. I'm in the plane, but I'm seeing clouds that look just like a ground. And when I look at it, that amazement, that splendor, that kind of fearful reality that comes in my mind, that's what David is saying. David said, the Lord made me fearful. And that when you just look at me, what you're saying to yourself is, if anybody can make something like this, that person don't need to be messed with. That person don't need to be looked down on. That person needs reverence. That person needs worship. If anybody can create anything like this, like me, like you, that person desires worship.
Hello.
He said that person is not to be messed with. That's what the text is trying to say in this text, my brothers and sisters. For those of you who are so caught up with your outward beauty, or I want to beat my face, I want to put this, I want to do that, and then you look at somebody and say, I am fearfully made. That's not what God is saying. What God is saying, when I say you are fearfully made, I'm talking about, can you notice in the text he said that I nated you. I nated you. That means I did some embroidery work on you. I work on you. That's what he's saying. If you look at the 13th verse, he said, for you formed my inward part. You knitted me together in my mother womb. Then he said, I will praise you because you knitted me. And my brothers and sisters, for those of you who don't know what that knitting is, I want to go deeper into that word fearful when he said you knitted me. It is very important that we understand the word knitting to it. It's like embroidery. You make the cushion and the pin and you're putting line together. There are orders there. They're so complex when you put the cushion pin together. That's what God is saying. So what does that mean when he said, I'm fearfully made, that I'm been made? What he means is that he's saying, before you start looking at your face, before you start looking at how long your head is, or before you start looking how your shape look, before you start looking how everything else look like, he's saying what you should first do is to know that you are fearfully made, and the fearfully reality is in you than rather outside of you. Can I say that again? He said, the fearfully that I have made you to be is not about what outside of you. It's really what inside of you. So that fearfully made is something inside of you that God said, I made it.
Jesus.
And let me push that for you so you can understand it. For those of you who stay looking down on yourself. You see, when God talks about mating, it appears like David has had some x-ray, spiritual x-ray, and God put David's heart into a fear so that David can see the function of his heart, so that when David looks at it, he said, wow, wow. Wow, for those of you who don't know what the heart looked like, let me give a little description of the heart. I want to bore you to this morning, but I want to make sure when you are bored that every time your heart beat, that you will appreciate your heart, because God knitted your heart in you. God knitted it. And for those of you who don't know about the heart, let me just give you a little biology about the heart. Are you ready for that? You see, the heart, when David said, is fearfully made, it is the complexity of the heart. It is everything that makes up the heart, that the heart function that keeps you walking, keep you living. You see, the heart, Minister Deacon Aponte, the heart is 188 to 575 grand heavy in your, that's stuck right in your chest. That's how heavy it is. It beats at 60 to 100 beats per minute. Before a minute clicks, 60 seconds, the heart is beat over 60 to 100 beats per minute. And for those of you who don't know that the heart beat 100,000 times per day, before the day ends, your heart that God made it will beat 100,000 times. Not only will it beat 100,000 times per day, but if you were to do a year, that stuff beat 42,048,000 times per year. God set that thing, and God said, if that is not fearful to you, that I can make your heart beat, the moment it stops beating, you stop living. God said, I'll put the heart in your chest, and you are fearfully
Thank you, Lord.
made.
Thank you, Lord.
Brothers and sisters, for those of you who still not understanding the heart, let me do what I'm talking about, the knitting of the cardio, the knitting of your heart. If you were to lay for 80 years on this earth, your heart would beat at 3,363,840,000 times within 80 years of your life. That's how your heart will beat. And if you don't know, that heart that you see that God created, that is fearfully created. I know you emphasize on your face too much because you see your face. I know you emphasize on your hands and your nails, but God is saying there's more to that. I put a heart that beats, that make you look and how you look, that make you walk the way you look, and that walk and that heart, it pumps 5 to 6 quart of blood per minute in your system just to get you walking strong and get you on track. And just per day, that heart that God puts in will allow 2,000 gallons of blood to flow all part of your life. I know I'm boring you, but I want to talk about the intricate reality of your heart so that you can appreciate God. That every time anybody say you are ugly, say, baby, you don't know what in here, what God has created, the complexity of my heart. Brothers and sisters, God said you are fearfully made.
Thank you, Lord.
And nothing fearful than that, and nothing that would give you on, nothing that would say, wow, nothing that would move you in way. God said, your heart, I put that heart in your head. And you know the heart is like a little chamber. When I don't know whether you've seen the heart, but it's like a little chamber. It has the left ventricle chamber, and it has a right ventricle chamber. And let me tell you a little bit about that heart. You see, that heart is protected by the side that is so strong that is part of a muscle that makes sure your heart is protected affected. And you know what happened is that on the left side or the left ventricle of your heart, what happened is that all the oxygenated blood comes from the pulmonary, from your lung, goes straight to the left side of your heart. It is already oxygenated, and it goes down and it pumps. When you look at the biology of your heart, that the valves open just like this, allowing your blood to go in, and that blood comes out too, and it closes, open and close. And that sound that you get that keeps going like this is because God say, I'm putting blood in, and the blood comes out, and it runs through your system from your head to your toes. And God is saying that I created the heart in your chest, and if you think it's all about your face and all about your leg and all about your hand, appreciate the beauty of your heart and the beauty of your brain.
Jesus.
God said, you emphasizing too much on your head and your clothes, but I'm really particular about what I made in you. What God really made in you is your brain. For those of you who don't know, your brain holds information in the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress has 4 trillion of words, but in your little brain that you call little, and looking at the old word, God said, I put 2 trillion in the hot words that you stored in your brain. Your brain can give any signal. God is saying that's what fearfully looks like, when you can see your brain function in ways that it function, and see your heart function in ways that it function. He said that is the fearfulness of God.
Jesus.
If such person can make your brain, anybody that can make your heart function that way, that person needs worship. That person needs to be adored. And that's what the text is saying, that I am fearfully made.
Hallelujah.
Bones, my fingers, and every part that I don't see yet, but that keeping me alive, that keeping me beautiful. God said, I know every hair string on your head. And you're talking about you not beautiful? My brothers and sisters, I don't care what people say. I don't care what Hollywood say. I don't care what the magazine say. God said you are fearfully made.
Hey, my God.
Brothers and sisters, that ought to make somebody shout, because you are fearfully made.
My God.
So do not emphasize on the physical. We will talk about the physical, but emphasize more on the intricate reality of what God created that makes you beautiful.
Jesus.
Not only that, my brothers and sisters, he said, but we are wonderfully made.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Word wonder, when you look at it in the Greek, that word wonder comes from the Hebrew word pala. Pala talks about your purpose and potential. That word wonder is put in a different way. It has to do with something marvelous, something set aside. In other words, God is saying, even though we just describe what in you, that function that is needed by God, but God said, human, I have separated you. I have made you distinct among my creation. And for those of you who have not understood what God really meant in that text, what he's saying is that you bear my image. You carry who I am. You have what I have. My breath, I breathe it in you. So you are separated.
Hey.
Brothers and sisters, I come to tell you, we emphasize on beauty in ways that have been manipulated. But Plato teaches us, my brothers and sisters, that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder who understands that beauty is not to be possessed and beauty is not to be used, but rather beauty is to be contemplated. Beauty is to just marvel and say, God, thank you for my sister. Look at that pink head. Look at that pink head. How beautiful it is. Look at my sister. Look at her eyes. Look at how beautiful she is. And not to criticize someone. Because my brothers and sisters, every time we say someone is ugly, what we really say to God is that that person does not have morality. It is a curse to God. You are actually cursing God when you say someone is ugly, because that word in the 4th century or in the 14th century, what it really means is something disposable, something with that is morally offensive. And the only thing you can do to God to die is to curse God. Remember Job's wife, when he came to Job, he said, Job, you know you got all this soul on you. What she was saying, you look too ugly. Look at the soul everywhere on you. She said the best thing you can do is just curse God. Just tell God how ugly you made me. It's a curse to God. What you're saying is morally offensive. She said, curse God and die. Every time someone tell you they are ugly, they are cursing God, because it is God who created you. Anytime someone look at you and say you are ugly, they are really offending God, because it is God who created you. It is God who formed you. The Bible says that God knows everything about you. It is God who formed you. He nated you. The Bible says he nated me together in my mother womb. How can you look at me and say I'm ugly?
Hallelujah.
I am not ugly.
Hallelujah.
Anyone who told you they are ugly or that you are ugly is offensive to God. And you got to be careful with your mouth sometime when you begin to describe God's creation. It is God who created that daughter that you call ugly. It's God who created that friend or that sister that you call ugly. So watch your mouth when you talk to God's people. Watch your mouth, because it's offensive to God to call someone ugly.
Hallelujah.
Take away the morality of God. You take away the attribute of God when you describe. He said, I am wonderfully made. My brothers and sisters, that wonder is that beautiful head that you have. God separated you. God made your head in the fabric. It is. God made your eyes so important. God made your nose, your physical nose. I don't care whether your nose is big, whether it's small, whether it's medium size. Nobody can tell whether a big nose is beautiful, a small nose is beautiful, or medium-sized nose. Every nose that God creates is beautiful, and that's the message. Every mouth that God created is beautiful, whether it has its own teeth in it or whether you boil your teeth and put it in it. God said your mouth is beautiful, your teeth is beautiful, your arms are beautiful, your hands are beautiful, everything about you. Said, I am wonderful.
Everything.
That's a message to you. So every time that word ugly, when you put ugliness in you, and I know some people who look at themselves and say, I'm ugly, baby. Every time you use that word ugly to yourself, what you are telling God is, God, I'm cursing you. You didn't make me wear. You didn't put everything in me. And that's why we need to transform the way we think. You are not ugly. Walk around. Say, I'm a child of God. I'm fearfully. Wherever my heart beats, I'm fearfully. Whatever my brain remembers, I'm fearfully created by God. And I'm wonderfully set apart.
Fearfully.
I'm not like animal, because when you say ugly, you consider me morally offensive. But I like the text, because the text said not only am I fearfully and wonderfully made, but the text also say my soul knows that very well. My brothers and sisters, I stopped by on this morning to let you know that if there's nothing that you should know more, if there's nothing you can learn, get all your PhD, get all your education, David said, what I know is about myself. And it's about the God who created. He said, I know that I am fearfully made. I know that, that's a sense of affirmation. That's a sense when you have those disparaging words about yourself, when you have the self-esteem being so low. David said, until you can know within yourself that you are fearfully made, that you are wonderfully made, then what you are really doing is degrading yourself. What you are really doing is degrading God and cursing God. So my brothers and sisters, I beg you that you stop cursing God. Stop cursing God. Your word said curse God and die. When you curse God, you die spiritually and you can die physically. Stop cursing God.
Jesus.
You said someone is ugly, you're cursing God. I don't care how beat up that person is. I don't care how bad that person is. I don't care what life has done to that person. I still stop by to let you know that person is the creation. That person is the creature of God, fearfully and wonderfully made.
Fearfully.
As I close, my brothers and sisters, a story that's told about a man who came up as a great speaker, spoke in many places, spoke so well that he was well known. And one time he was invited to come and speak about life to a group of students. Over 2,000 students gathered in the hall. And as he came out, his resume, his resume was read out. This guy was read off. He have had great experiences, and he's a great speaker. And what happened was, when they called him up, he did something very bizarre. This is what he did. He reached out into his pocket, picked a $100 bill, and show it out to all of his audience, and say, "How many of you want this $100?" You can hear everybody in the audience, "Oh, I need that $100. I want that $100." He took the $100 and crumbled the $100. After he crumbled the $100, he asked a question again, the same question, but with a modifier. He said, "How many of you want this crumbled $100?" Everybody said, "We stayed wanted." He said, "Well," he took the crumble $100, threw it to the floor, and stepped on it. After he stepped on the crumble $100, he picked it up. He asked the same question with two different modifiers. "How many of you want this crumble? How many of you want this step on $100?" They look at him and said, "Well, we stay wanted." He looked at it and said, "Why do you stay wanted?" He said, because it has value. That no matter how well it's crumbled, no matter how well it is step on, no matter how where it is dispatched, that $100 still have $100 value. Once you open it up and take it anywhere, you're going to get $100 worth of goods. And that's why I'm trying to tell somebody. God said it doesn't matter how beat up you are. It doesn't matter whether life crumbles you. It doesn't matter whether life step on you. It doesn't matter where life put you. God said there's a purpose in your life. And that word wonder has to do with the purpose. And God said your purpose has not been devalued yet. All you need to do is straighten up. And when you can straighten up is when you can look up to Christ and say, "God, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No other help I have but thee. If thou will hold that self from me." My brothers and sisters, you are valuable. You are beautiful.
Yes,
you are beautiful.
Yes,
you are beautiful.
Yes, you are.
May God bless you, my brothers and sisters. Carry those words that you are beautiful. You are beautiful woman. You are handsome man. You are beautiful woman. You are a handsome man because you are fearfully and wonderfully made.